Yes, the Nuggets won. Yes, Jokic won Finals MVP. But I'm not gonna forget about Jimmy Butler, who keeps making the NBA Finals, putting up 56 points in a game, a 40-point triple-double. But what if I told you he isn't even a top 20 player in the league during the regular season? How can that make any sense? Because Jimmy Butler chooses to not care, at least about the regular season. Even if he didn't have a great Finals this time around, the Heat had a less than 3% chance of making the Finals before the season even started. And Jimmy got him there. He's exposed the NBA once again, and he's not the only one proving that the regular season is becoming meaningless. Unless the NBA acknowledges this, as you're going to see, this problem is only going to get worse. In fact, it already has. When you take a look at NBA viewership, as someone who's been watching the NBA for a little over a decade, you get a sense of when people are excited about a regular season. Even before Twitter existed, you'd get the, "Did you see that game last night?" But the past couple of seasons haven't felt that way, and the viewership numbers reflect that. Because if you take a look at the numbers, the NBA was sky high during the Jordan era, the highest ever, takes a dip after his retirement, goes back up with Kobe and LeBron, stays pretty solid with LeBron Cavs versus Curry Warriors, but has continued to dip. People claimed it was parody, that the Cavs and Warriors repeat every year in the finals was boring for the season. But now we actually have parity, and viewership is nowhere close to 2018. The way people flock to the screen to see what playoff Jimmy Butler is going to do today is not the same during the regular season. And in 2020, we saw the same huge jump in Jimmy from the regular season to the playoffs. It's actually quite ridiculous. Butler has the most 40-point playoff games in Heat history, and a lot of legends have worn that jersey, but he doesn't have a single 40-point game with the Heat in the regular season. And you can make the point that each game is not as important during the regular season. I agree. As Draymond Green said,
"It's the nights I show up and we playing against the sorry motherfucker. How am I supposed to get myself up with this engine?"
But I'd like to go back to one of the highest viewed eras in NBA history, 2008 to 2014. And here's what Kobe's attitude about that was.
"People don't know this, but one of the reasons my husband played through injuries and pain was because he said he remembered being a little kid, sitting in the nosebleeds with his dad to watch his favorite player play. Kobe didn't want to disappoint his fans, especially the ones in the 300 sections that saved up to watch him play. The kids with the same excitement he once had. What about the fans that saved up to watch me play just once? He never forgot about his fans."
Something we can all take to heart, to put our full effort in what we do. But if a guy can cruise through the regular season, turn up in the playoffs, and make the finals without the NBA really saying anything, what does that say about the regular season? What is up, dudes, that's ballers, players? It's your boy MJ. We've seen it with Kawhi repeatedly taking games off, coming into the playoffs, and becoming a top 5 player in the league again. But on November 2012 specifically is when it all started to go downhill. A date that we'll get to. But this year, the NBA is saying that the NBA Finals has the same viewership as last year and higher than the Suns Bucks in 2021. I wish that was the case, but from my die-hard basketball friends, I got texts like, "There was a Finals game yesterday? 2 years ago, you couldn't peel him away from the screen during a Finals game, and now he doesn't even know when one happened?" The NBA has caught on that viewership numbers are bringing in bad publicity and trying to save face. For them, the game is their product and viewership is their healthiness metric. But there's another crucial factor that has been brewing for nearly a decade that the NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has failed to stop. Players are getting away with more than ever. And no, I'm not just talking about Ja with the 9 and Zion with a different 9.
What do you mean by that?
No, I'm talking about players sitting out games. I'm talking about load management. Let's take a look at the top 3 MVP candidates this year. Embiid, Jokic, and Giannis. All 3 played less than 70 games. In fact, Embiid is the only MVP in history to have played less than 70 games in a normal length regular season since 1980. If each game isn't as important and the stars aren't playing, why would NBA fans be incentivized to what? The NBA implemented a minimum number of games to win MVP after realizing that more and more players are just sitting out. But that's just stopping the bleeding, not the problem. The first big case of load management started in 2012, and it all went downhill from there. The NBA fined the Spurs when they sat out Tim Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, and Danny Green against the LeBron-Wade Bosch Heat on a nationally televised game. A big matchup that was just lost. NBA Commissioner at the time, David Stern, fined the Spurs $250,000, stating that the Spurs did a disservice to the league and their fans, and for violating a policy of resting players in a manner contrary to the best interest of the NBA. And that fine was a slight deterrent from doing it again. It was big news. Arguments for both sides advocating this as a strategy and warnings that this could ruin the NBA. But as Adam Silver, current NBA commissioner, took the reins, we saw more and more players load managing during big games. What happened to violating the best interests of the NBA? They changed what the interest was to something that would ruin the integrity of the sport. You see, the idea of load management was to protect players. Ideally, if you rest players strategically for games that are meaningless, you could have healthier players that are more ready for the most important games, the playoffs. Fast forward to now, and we just had a season with the most injuries to stars in NBA history. Paul George gave his thoughts on his podcast.
They think by giving us time off, it's helped managing our bodies, but in honesty, I think it's just making us weaker as players without putting that load and strain to our bodies.
Countless matchups were ruined. Players are saying that it's the management that's forcing players to sit. Larry Nance said that I do know on occasion that it's not the player's choice. It's gotten so bad that one of the biggest regular season events, the All-Star Game, has become trash. Just this past year was perhaps the worst of all time.
That is the worst basketball game ever played.
The All-Star Game has always been fun, then high-effort competition in the fourth quarter, but that has slowly disappeared to the no-defense games we see now. This article in 2018 talks about the lack of competition. Then the NBA changed the format to pick your own teams, more effort was shown, then back to the no-defense the next few years, breaking every single scoring record. And the cycle has continued to this current day. The All-Star Game ratings dropped 27% since last year, had lower ratings than the NFL Pro Bowl that almost no one watches. Based on the NBA PR, the 2023 playoffs were the most watched playoffs in the past 5 years. Maybe because LeBron and Steph Curry were both in it and there wasn't a pandemic. So if players aren't incentivized enough to play hard during the regular season consistently, and management is stepping in to protect their assets, I asked the question, why are we watching the regular season? And if I'm having difficulty selling the NBA when it's my literal job to watch the games, I can understand why so many people have decided to not tune in. But there's just something the NBA won't admit. A solution that I'm gonna outline right now. I'm trying to be a voice for us fans, the regular viewers, and I think that if we can get to 1 million subscribers, we'll get the right people noticed and force these convos. So subscribe if you want, or don't, just happy you're here. There are certain players that step up in the playoffs. Playoff Rondo, playoff Kawhi, a wealth of experience that allows them to turn up when needed. And certain players fall short in the playoffs repeatedly. Think James Harden, some years of playoff P. For them, the regular season is what they got. So if Jimmy, Kawhi, and other stars can miss 25% per season and still dominate in the playoffs without consequence, that's it. Consequences. Adam Silver has failed over and over to protect the integrity of the sport, trying to turn it into a spectacle that's lost its core value over the years, instead of doubling down what David Stern did in 2012. Don't let players sit out key matchups. Have it so missing regular season games triggers hefty fines, penalties, in-season records, penalties that could carry over to the playoffs. Make the regular season feel so important that it's not optional. The all-day notification shout goes to an OG, my girl, Samhita, who's happy that Jokic is happy celebrating. Thanks for the all-day support. And if you want to know how Jokic exposed the NBA media, there's a video right here. And if you're still here, you're a real one, so comment important so I know. It's your boy MJ. We out. We vibe.